Are you exhausted from gaslighting? Well, just hang on. More to come. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And as you can see, I entitled this one under Gaslight Friday. And hopefully, you're doing well out there. And I just want to say thanks to the loyal patrons, the subscribers, as well as our friends over on Periscope. And hope you guys are doing well and that you are hanging in there. And I would like to remind you to keep an eye on the community tab for updates on what's to come for future future platforms after March 31st, I believe. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And today we are going to actually get into a few things. And we're going to have an opener from, if you're not familiar with Dennis Prager, Dennis Prager is most known, or at least he's prolific in my experience from PragerU. So whether you follow PragerU or not, you might be able to, to get to learn more about Dennis Prager. But we have a bit of what I'm calling an opener from Dennis Prager on this morning. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we're going to have a word of thanks to our sponsors, and then we'll dig right into our Gaslight Friday. I thank you guys so much for tuning in to Black Spring. If you're not quite sure if you're tuning in, or if you're driving by, as I say, with the window down, I thank you so much for considering coming in this morning to Black Spring with Autumn, because you have choices. See you guys right after this. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. Once again, good morning, everyone, and hello, and good morning to Bet Callie Garcia. Thank you, Bet Callie Garcia, for coming in. I appreciate it. And also, for those of you that are coming in, I appreciate it if you guys could hit the like button and help us feed the AI around here. And I say that all the time. And you can do that by either hitting the like button, the unlike button. You can hit subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed, which I think is above all would work really well, at least as your baseline. And then if you can share it out, that's even more helpful, and it helps with disseminating the cast. So I really appreciate it. And once again, hello to Callie Garcia. Thank you so much for coming in. So yes, I want to get into the first part of this stream. And as I mentioned, it's going to be perspective is what I'm calling this. And I think it's a pertinent perspective. And once again, this is not your, I want to call it a hope emergent kind of a stream in these times. I think we can find inspiration and hope in many forms, but I'm not sure if this will be the fit for you. But I appreciate you guys for coming in, and we're gonna just get right into it. So good morning to Keys Club Mafioso. Good morning to Keys Club Mafioso. Thank you so much. And as I say all the time, if you haven't had opportunity to hit the like button or the unlike button or even to share it out, then you'll have an opportunity to do that before the end of the stream. And that also goes for, I guess it even, that's the same, we can carry that same message even into those that are watching or that may watch this in replay. So once again, good morning to you all. And we are going to start out with an article, a perspective that comes from The Good American, and that is the article that's written by Dennis Prager. And this particular article is entitled The Good American and Front Page Mag. So that is where we are going to start today. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. So what you see before you is that article. And let's see, let's get going here. All right, so according to this, now, but just before I do that, just before I get into it, I do want to say that in my short time, which is when I say short time, I'm relative to the land of content creators, I guess I wasn't aware that our country was so ripe for the type of demoralization or the rule that looks like some of the things that we're experiencing right now, and how people are many people have just kind of rolled over. And I'm not saying everyone, but I think there's a good portion of the mass, that have kind of, they've been subverted, significantly subverted. But I can also recall some segments in which I discussed a book or an author, which is Timothy Snyder, on tyranny. And we talked quite a bit about the perspectives and the parallels between um, Germany 1933 and just there were many parallels there. There were lessons on tyranny was generally what the book was, the premise of that book. But it looks like Dennis Prager has his own spin on it, which it's pretty, it's much more straight to the point, but it's definitely a perspective that I wanted to share. So this is entitled The Good American: Haunting Parallels to 1933, and it was actually written on Thursday, which was just yesterday. So according to this, in my last column, I described how I have come to better understand the moral problem of, quote, good German, the term used to describe the average, presumably descent German, who did nothing to hurt Jews, but also did nothing to help them and did nothing to undermine the Nazi regime, end quote. Now, this is one of the most pertinent excerpts, I think, from this article. He says, watching America accept the rationally and morally indefensible physical and economic lockdown of the country, I concluded, quote, apathy in the face of tyranny runs out not to be a German or Russian characteristic. I just never thought it could happen in America, end quote. In 1 week, it has gotten worse. Now we are faced with a lockdown on speech, the likes of which have never been seen in America, and the parallels with Germany are even more stark. Here, the left wing party, the Democrats he's referring to, and the left wing media, the quote mainstream media, are using the mob invasion of the Capitol exactly the way the Nazis used the Reichstag fire. On February 27, 1933, exactly 1 month after the Nazis came to power, the German parliament building, the Reichstag, was set ablaze. The Nazis blamed the fire on their archenemy, the communist, and used the fire to essentially extinguish the Communist Party and its ability to publish, speak, or otherwise spread its message. Using the Reichstag fire as an excuse, the Nazis passed the Enabling Act, a law that gave the Nazi Chancellor Adolf Hitler the power to pass laws by decree without the Reichstag. Now to America, 2021. On January 6, 2021, a right wing mob of a few hundred people broke away from the peaceful right wing protest involving tens, if not thousands of American conservatives and forced its way into the U.S. Capitol. One Capitol policeman was killed after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, and one of the right wing Capitol invaders was shot by a Capitol police officer. A handful of others who died in the vicinity of the Capitol did so of nonviolent causes. Aside from smashed windows, the mob seemed to have done little damage to the Capitol. Their intent is still not clear. it seems to have been largely catharsis. They hurt no legislators. If they intended to overthrow the government, they were delusional. Beginning the next day, the American left used the Capitol mob just as the Nazis used Reichstag as an excuse to subjugate its conservative enemies and further squelch civil liberties in America, specifically freedom of speech. Twitter not only permanently banned the account of the President of the United States, but permanently banned him from Twitter. Any Twitter account found tweeting DT was permanently banned. The left was able to do all of this not only by using the Capitol mob incident, but also by engaging in a series of lies. The first was blaming the attack on President DT over and over in every left wing medium and stated repeatedly by Democrats that Trump is blamed for, quote, inciting, end quote, the riot in his speech just before it took place. Almost never is a Trump quote cited. Because there's none, on the contrary, he did say, quote, I know that everyone here will be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, end quote. Another lie was the immediate labeling of the mob attack on the Capitol as, quote, insurrection, end quote. All left-wing media and Democrats now refer to the event as an insurrection, a term defined by almost every dictionary as, quote, an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government, end quote. As morally repulsive as the actions of the mob were, they did not constitute a revolt against civil authority or an established government. Disrupting the work of legislators for a few hours, as wrong as that was, does not constitute a, quote, revolt, end quote. But what proves the left's, quote, insurrection, end quote, label is a lie that Democrats and their media never once labeled the left wing riots of 2020, which involved the destruction by fire or occupation and vandalizing of police stations and the establishment of, quote, autonomous zones, end quote, which by definition revolted against, quote, established governments, end quote, as an, quote, insurrection, end quote. The enormous number of businesses burned, looted, and otherwise destroyed was barely covered by the mainstream media, and their violent perpetrators were almost never prosecuted, let alone condemned as engaging in an insurrection. Dozens of people were killed in these riots, yet there was more outcry and condemnation against the hours-long occupation of the US Capitol than against 6 months of left-wing violent riots. Then, like the Nazi regime after the Reichstag fire, the left immediately moved to further curtail civil liberties, specifically conservatives' ability to promote their ideas. Twitter and Amazon made it impossible for the alternatives to Twitter, Parler to exist, all in the name of preventing another right wing, quote, insurrection, end quote. In the name of the Capitol insurrection, the Democrats announced they would impeach the President of the United States, though he had only 14 days left in office. In the name of the Capitol, in quote, surrection, in quote, the editor of Forbes, Randall Lane, announced that Forbes Media was, quote, holding those who lied for Trump accountable, in quote, in what he called, quote, a truth reckoning, in quote. Hire any of Trump's press secretaries, in quote, Lane warned, and Forbes will assume that everything your company or firm talks about is a lie, end quote. In the name of the Capitol mob attack, 159 law professors at Chapman universities have called for the firing of John Eastman, a tenured fellow law professor and holder of an endowed chair at Chapman, because, quote, his actions Wednesday that helped incite a riot, end quote. Eastman had spoken at the Trump rally. The professors ended their Los Angeles Times letter, quote, he does not belong on our campus, end quote. Words well chosen. And finally, here, what the left is doing is announcing and enforcing that conservatives, quote, do not belong, end quote, in our society. The parallels to the 1933 are precise, and most good Americans are keeping silent, just as did most Germans. Though they do not risk being beaten up, are Americans in 2021 as afraid of the American left as Germans in the 1933 were of the German fascist? We're about to find out. All right. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. Good morning. Let the truth be told. Nice to see you here. I'm going to flash your comment here. Did you say the Black Spring with Autumn News Network? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be posting an emergency in the event if I go down. if I go down, then come over to the community tab to find out what's to find out what's next. I'm going to be honest, since I'm talking about my time on YouTube, or AKA shout out to Derek C. Williams on their tube. I never thought I would need an evacuation plan or plan of emergency, but apparently maybe I do. So you might know where you can find me, or so you guys can band together and and save yourselves. Good morning, the definition of anarchy. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. It's nice to see you here as per usual. Thank you so much for all you do. Support the channel. And hello again to Bet Callie Garcia. And Bet Callie Garcia says, just like they use the Oklahoma bombing as well. And Keys Club Morning Fiasco, thank you so much for coming in. You're joining us from Periscope. So yes, and also, and I know I sound like a broken record on some level, but in the event the ship goes down, the ship's going to go down over on Periscope on March 31st. So I'm just saying, I'm going to try to put the information as needed on the page so that you know what to do. But you might have to double dip, as I said, out here in these social media streets in order to find me elsewhere, which I am on other platforms already. But I'm thinking about doing something, creating a real home base for this channel, and those kinds of follow-ups will be what you can find on the community tab. So once again, I have a comment I want to read from Bet Callie Garcia. Bet Callie says, Clinton used the Oklahoma bombing into an opportunity to attack personal enemies like talk radio Rush Limbaugh for, quote, fomenting, end quote, the climate that led to the incident, from Breitbart's book PP79. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting. Thank you, Bet Callie Garcia. Sorry, that was my fault. We won't give that one to the AI. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, that was me. We'll save some room for the AI. Plenty of room for the AI to blame the AI down the road. But what I wanted to say was thank you so much, Bet Callie, for sharing that. And yes, yeah, it's just like it's. I think I did one stream once where I said it was information overload, because to me, like, we've had mega bombshells all year, but yet who are the bombs hitting? Are we hitting anybody? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not wrong, but if you guys know something that I don't know, just lay it on me. I'll take it. And thank you for sharing that. It's really important that I think sometimes we're a little bit fickle when it comes to history, and I've said this before. I think a lot of people have thought for a long time that nothing like that can happen here. Oh, they can't do that. The dissenters, when they're presented with anything that they haven't seen on their mainstream media hacks, then, oh, they can't do that. What do you mean they can't? What's to prevent them from doing it? It's not about what they can do. We're talking about what they're doing. It's not, I think that's a little bit two different things. In theory, under a law, maybe they can't, but ideally, but no, lawfully they cannot, but they are. So I don't know. I don't really waste my time. Is at this point, like I say from this channel, take what you want, do what you want to do with it, and just take what you need, or don't take any of it. But at least, I appreciate you for coming in and taking the time And I say there's nothing new under the sun. There's just new opportunities. Just new opportunities. Or just more creative ways to spin things and deceive and pervert. I think of pervert and deceive at times one and the same. So Bet Callie says this is not new. The Dems don't waste time using tragedies. Fidel with Elian Gonzalez when the feds came into a private home and took a kid out of his home with rifles. Talk about peaceful. Ooh, are you a history buff, Bet Callie Garcia? I don't know. I'm a little biased for history buffs. And then Bet Callie Garcia says under Clinton's administration. All right, so we're gonna keep going here. I thank you guys so much for all that you do. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thanks so much again, the loyal patrons and the subscribers. Thanks so much, Derek C. Williams, for sharing out the stream on your Friday morning. All right, so I want to keep going here. So we talked about that. So just a little bit to round that out. I didn't mean to spend so much time, a little bit going off on a ramble there, but we talked about this before where historically, and I think I'm going to credit this to the author Timothy Snyder. We talked about this is the perspective that I'm kind of gleaning from him. I'm kind of referencing here because the two I'm using the two to try to connect a couple of points here. But we talked about the participatory obedience, and I think it's advantageous of what Prager was saying, and what Snyder was, the point he was making is that the people ended up participating and showing the tyrants what was possible without them, even before they were full force. And we the people have shown the globalists, the left, their auxiliaries what's possible. And so now so many are participating, and they have a really high propensity to obey under the guise of safety and health. So I think Dennis Prager is right on with his assertion, and I think it's a shared assertion, I think, is what I'm saying. And yes, the quote that he says, apathy in the face of tyranny turns out not to be a German or Russian characteristic. And I think that's a lot of I think that's one of the sometimes we kind of view things as kind of biased, or that's what they did. Oh, that can't happen here. It's only that group of people, or that kind of regime that these things happen, or that kind of tyranny is possible. But I think that's proven to be false. All right, so I'm just going to keep going here. And thank you guys so much once again for tuning in to what I'm calling a Gaslight Friday. Thank you so much, Bet Callie Garcia. All right, so I'm going to move us on. I do have something else coming up for you. And I'm going to go into a bit of a liner that comes from the Israel365news.com. And here you have a top rabbi who is, to me, saying America is collapsing and Israel must step up as the new world superpower. Yikes. Okay, so we'll see what that looks like. Good morning. Good morning, Steve Willis. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys all for coming around here and for hanging out on your Friday. And Bet Callie says, kind of like history and current events, I need help with understanding the gaslighting thing. Can you break this down? Well, I consider gaslighting almost in the same vein as it's something that kind of psychologically we get these liners and these stories and these breaking stories and the events, or we get rhetoric. Rhetoric is what I consider gaslighting, is to kind of make people think, like you kind of get an emotional reaction, or you start to question your own you start to question your own convictions or your own framework or concept about what you thought you knew, whether it's on a moral or ethical um, basis. And and it gets people, it's almost clickbait, immediately you want to find out, oh my gosh, what are they talking about, what are they talking about, America's collapsing, or I even find that the term storming, when they used it in storming the Capitol, I thought that was a bit of a gaslighting, especially if they're not going to include all the details surrounding it. So I think gaslighting is what I'm using to describe a lot of media, whether it's a misinformation, disinformation, or no information campaign to sway people or make people kind of second guess where they think they are on some of these issues that we're dealing with right now. And we're dealing with so many. So the gaslighting is I guess it's a verb. It's very progressive, and I think the mainstream media tries to keep it going. It's a part of their rhetoric. It's a part of the propaganda, and you really have to, to kind of vet things against your own framework, your own concepts. I think in order to, it's discern. You have to discern. You know, don't be taken or swayed by propaganda or rhetoric. You know, find out, how you can extract what's logical, what's practical, what's logical at times. And I think that's, discernment is the biggest, the most pertinent, I think, term out there right now, because I think a lot of people they don't have discernment. They don't have anything to draw on because they don't have their own, they don't have their own perspectives or their own concepts to work with. All they have is what's fed to them. They want to be fed everything, and that's all they have to draw on. And it's what they're being fed, I think, is full of propaganda and rhetoric. And it's the ability to convince people of things, or it's the ability to make people question or second guess themselves. So that's my perspective on gaslighting. I'm sure you could find other perspectives or assertions on it, but that's why I'm calling this Gaslight Friday, because some of these liners that I'm dealing with are pretty gaslighting, and the effect is gaslighting. And some people won't be gaslit at all. They'll just take the bait, hook, line, and sink. You know, it's just there. It's just natural. It's natural, I think, for people to accept that. And some people have a term for that. I don't use that around here too much, but hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. So I'm going to keep going here. We'll take you to the next line. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And it is Friday, whether you want to call it, whether you submit to it being the Gaslight Friday or just a plain, business as usual on your Friday. Thank you for spending it around here. So let's take you on to the next liner, which I find to be not, well, maybe a little bit of gaslighting in there. Right? Because some people they'll react to this. Okay, according to this is a top rabbi. America is collapsing. Israel must step up as new world superpower. Now, this is written from David Sidman, and it opens up with a quote from the Bible. It says, "And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you." That's Genesis 12:3, and that's the Israel Bible. All right, so I'm going to bring this to you. So according to this, one of Israel's most respected rabbis, Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu, I'm probably butchering that, but take it for what it's worth, and you can fact check me on it later, has released a statement on the status of America and as a waning world superpower, and a message of hope for Israel to fill the void. Rabbi Eliyahu is the chief rabbi of Safed and a member of the Chief Rabbinate Council. The big crisis that is currently happening in America regarding the outcome of the U.S. elections, Rabbi Eliyahu explains that the schism is deeper than last week's incident on Capitol Hill, saying, quote, "The big crisis that is currently happening in America didn't start with the storming of the Capitol. It started with the Democratic Party's lack of confidence in Trump's presidency, expressed in fiery protest across the United States, and his being labeled in every possible derogatory manner, end quote. And the rabbi added that the lack of Republican trust in America's election process also contributes to the crisis. Quote, with tremendous sorrow, we can recall this event as part of the process of the U.S. descending from the stage of world history. It's a sad moment, but it's happening, end quote. Pharaoh fell too. So here it looks like we're getting some historical context here. Recalling the fall of ancient Egypt, the rabbi uses historic precedent to back up his claim, saying, quote, this is not the first time a superpower fell because of a crisis of values and returns to being an ordinary country among other nations. That is what happened to Egypt and Rome in the old days. That is what happened to the Ottoman Empire approximately a century ago, all the way to the Russian Empire that collapsed 30 years ago, both of whom collapsed due to a failure of values that led to their demise, as well as a decline in their great power as world leaders, end quote. Rabbi Elihu also recalled the collapse of France and Great Britain, who were once, quote, considered part of the four powers that rule the world, end quote. He added that they collapsed just as Europe as a whole is collapsing because of values or lack thereof. In this section under values of political correctness, quote, the values of justice were replaced with those of political correctness. The family values have been replaced with those of hedonism. The birth rate that fell below the red line caused European leaders to open the floodgates to mass Muslim migration that would fill the void, and Europe started to totally lose its character, end quote. Rabbi Eliyahu sees the developments unfolding as an opportunity for Israel to step up and take America's place as the world's superpower. He supports his proposition by calling Israel a world leader in family values, saying, quote, we've been called upon to fill this vacuum. There are problems inside the state of Israel as well, but unlike Europe, Israel leads the world in the stability of family values. The average amount of children per Israeli woman is double the average of the Western world, and this is what propels Israel's economy and creativity forward. Israel also leads the globe in the least amount of children from single mothers, end quote. Regarding a potential insurrection, Rabbi Eliyahu refers to the destruction of the Second Temple as evidence that a similar situation cannot reoccur, saying, quote, as far as government stability is concerned, we are not similar in any way. There cannot be anti-governmental revolution in Israel. With all the allegations we have regarding this and the corruption and that corruption in the system of government, none of us have aspirations of a military revolt. We all recall the heavy price of destruction of the Second Temple, and it can't be repeated, end quote. The rabbi also said that because Israel trails the Western world in alcohol and drug consumption. Not pretentious, but Torah. Acknowledging that his proclamation could come across as condescending, the rabbi explains that it's all part of God's plan, saying, quote, Israel is stable and is called upon to take its place as a world leader in values. I realize that to many people this sounds very pretentious, but this is the template that G-D promised our forefather Abraham, end quote. And this one is, he's citing another, it says, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. Genesis 12:3, reflecting on the Jewish people who says, don't recognize the opportunity. The rabbi notes, the only ones who do not see this is us, and the time has come for us to recall our destiny. We need to prepare for it so that we can fulfill it with all necessary responsibilities and not make the mistakes that they made, end quote. So I'll put that in the stream for you guys. You can chew on that. We're available. Once again, I thank you guys so much for coming in. And got a comment here. Thank you so much. And it comes from Paul Graves. Good morning to you, Paul Graves. He says, this rabbi misrepresented Genesis 12:3 by misapplying its meaning to the nation of modern Israel. It clearly says that it was speaking specifically about an individual, which was Abraham. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So yeah, so I have that in the stream for you guys. So The only thing I want to add, well, I'm not adding to that. The only thing I want to assert is this is another example, I think, of those that are, can I say, they are vying for a position. It seems, it's very competitive, or it's like the world's waiting with bated breath for people to step up and say, "Oh, hey, we're going to throw our hat into the ring, and we're going to take our rightful place in this, for the to be the new world superpower." And see, at the same time, people have denied, and that's going to bring me to the Black Spring archives. I mean, and hopefully they won't. They may not pull me down for this, but they might. I'm saying, if they do, you know what to do, or either you'll know what to do. So thank you so much for coming in. So with that said, I think I'm going to kind of segue us into the archive for just a second. So once again, I hope you guys are doing well out there. And once again, I want to thank Derek C. Williams for sharing out the stream. I'm going to say this, whether you are looking for a hope and urgent, um, whether you're trying to get a fix here on this channel, or I'm not sure, but there's a lot of information out there, and I think there's a lot of presentations out there that are really, they're interesting, and they're very interesting, to say the least. So what I want to do is I want to take you into a clip from my archives. It looks like I did this approximately 10 months ago, roughly. A little bit different format. I would say a different framing, a different production. So I'm going to take you to that right now. Hope you guys are doing well out there, and thanks so much for tuning in on today. So I'm going to take you to the archive in which the big guy himself quotes, talks about, his perception and his and sees the day, some years ago. I think roughly about 8 years ago this was done. I'm going to read a comment before I go to that, and then we're going to get you into the archive just a second. But Callie Garcia says, "This is crazy that people are living in fear in the USA. I'm always watching and monitoring my choice of words. It's exhausting and not productive." I second that, but Callie Garcia, it is exhausting. It is exhausting. I don't know. I'm thinking, like, just having to work in that kind of a disclaimer on every, for everything that you say, or if I'm in, if Black Spring becomes incapacitated, go over to the community tab. That is exhausting. I will help you to say. And so I'm going to take you to the archive right now, where you can hear for yourself who has spoken of the NWO. And so I'm going to take you there right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So hopefully this won't be too far out of context, but it's going to be from one of my previous, the Democrats and their process of can. Okay, sorry about and that. Beyond. Thank you for tuning in. 2
wars affords us an opportunity. It allows us to refocus our resources to other parts of the world where they are needed, where we face new challenges. This is the world you are graduating into. This is what I want to talk about today with you for a few minutes. I believe we, and particularly you, your class, has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century in a way consistent with American interest and the common interest. Think of the possibilities. For the first time in history, the Western Hemisphere is in a position where it has the possibility of being middle class, democratic, and secure, from Canada to Chile. The Pacific Basin, peaceful and prosperous. A new relationship with China, where we cooperate and compete, but where conflict is not inevitable. A revitalized global trading order, defined by greater integration and economic growth, where barriers are lowered at the borders and behind our borders, generating millions of American jobs, where intellectual property is protected and the playing field is level.
All right, guys, thank you so much. So I just wanted to let you see that clip. And for those that, people will continue to deny things and continue to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. But, conspiracy, we'll take that. But yeah, I just wanted you to hear that for yourself. In fact, I might even put that one in the stream for you before the close of this stream. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I'm going to take you on to the next line. But before I do that, I want to thank the patrons once again. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we'll be right back. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in and for hanging in there. Hope you guys are doing well out there. So we're going to go on to the next line of today. And this is going to come from it's going to come from another corporation, or another an arm of tyranny, and it's going to be HSBC. And they're basically saying mask up or split, you're out of here. So before I bring you to that, we're going to have a word from our friends over at the JBS. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be right back. This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. The JBS does not endorse any political party or candidates. Rather, it focuses on the education, training, and development of the American voters. All right, guys. So we'll take you over to a liner from our friends at the JBS. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you have not had an opportunity to feed the AI, it would be greatly appreciated if you could do that. And you can do that by hitting the unlike button, or you can also dare to share out the stream. I really appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. And we'll get going right now. All right, so what you see before you right now comes from our friends at the TNA. That is the New American, and this comes from Luis Miguel. Shout out to Luis Miguel. HSBC tells UK customers mask up or have your account canceled. All right, so who suspected that Big Brother would come wearing a medical mask? The British-based Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, HSBC, claims it will reserve the right to cancel the accounts of customers who refuse to wear masks inside its UK branches. HSBC, founded in 1865, has a policy of requiring masks within its premises unless visitors have a medical exemption. The bank's threat came when a spokesman for the Mirror told, quote, the outlet, quote, if you do visit us, please wear a face covering and maintain a safe distance from others. If individuals put themselves or our colleagues at risk without a medical exemption, we reserve the right to withdraw their account, end quote. This is far from the first time HSBC has clamped down on account holders in a politically motivated way. In December, it froze the account of a church in Hong Kong that supported the pro freedom movement there. The very same month, the bank froze the accounts of the exiled Hong Kong lawmaker Ted Hui, or Hugh, along with those of his wife and parents. It is believed they took action under the orders of Chinese Communist police. Actions such as those prompted Britain's Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, to criticize HSBC for its enabling of Chinese Communist government. All of the major Britain supermarkets have also said they will refuse service to customers not wearing a mask unless they have a medical exemption. Some supermarkets, such as Tesco, also require visitors to do their shopping alone. I almost said the CV Mocktail passports are currently being trialed in the UK, with thousands of Britons receiving them. The passport comes in the form of a smartphone app developed by the biometric firm iProof in partnership with the cybersecurity company MVene. Hmm, love the eyes, right? iProof. Eye on you. iProof. Breitbart News noted the trial is expected to be completed by March and will be overseen by two directors of public health in a local authority yet to be announced. The stated goal of the project is to see how health passports can function as a means of tracking how many people have received the first or second dose of the mocktail. The chief executive of iProof, Andrew Budd, claimed that it was, quote, very important, end quote, that the mocktail program should be tied with Britain's socialized healthcare system, the National Health Service. The concept of the CV health passports was first floated by Health Secretary Matt Hancock in April, who said at the time, quote, we are looking at an immunity certificate. People who have had the disease have got the antibodies immunity and then have immunity can show that and therefore get back as much as possible to normal life, end quote. European governments are showing increasing support for travel passes and mocktail passports. Denmark, for example, announced last week that it plans to roll out travel passes early this year. On Wednesday, the Schengen Visa Info reported that the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, yikes, wrote to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, calling for the bloc to introduce a standardized mocktail passport for travel among member nations. Quote, the lengthy experience we have had on developing a common PLF has shown us that there is an urgent need for high-level EU-wide mobilization to move things forward, end quote. Mitsotakis said. The plight of the British is not very different from the situation that confronts Americans in the aftermath of the Capitol breach last week. The major social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, censored or outright banned President Trump and have purged the accounts of conservatives. Meanwhile, Google and Apple combined to take Twitter alternative Parler off of their app stores, while Amazon finished the platform off by pulling the plug on their web hosting. In light of an unabashed action by these corporations against the right, the left-wing media has called for making corporations the, quote, fourth branch of government, end quote, as they can act more swiftly to fight, quote, extremism, end quote, than the existing government. The Western world is spiraling towards a global technocracy in which multinational corporations work hand in hand with the government and wipe out dissidents by employing a, quote, social credit, end quote, system similar to the one used in communist China. Anyone who does not go along with their ruling regime will be blocked from engaging in society, losing access to financial and food services, public utilities, telecommunication, and more. Doesn't that sound? Doesn't that sound in line with so many things we've talked about? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment. Bet Callie Garcia says, I haven't traveled to China. I'm against the CCP. I've been to Cuba on the peacemaker trip. What I learned that Cubans are too far indoctrinated. We in the USA are heading down that road. And yeah, so we've seen the writing on the wall, to say the least. I just want to make one other point. I just want to make one other point on that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. But yeah, so and I've talked about that. We've been talking about technocracy and who's playing a role, and we've got maybe extra, it looks like implied branches of government at this point, not just the corporations, but I've talked about the other auxiliaries, whether it be athletes or these civic societies that are shaping. They're trying to mold this thing, into something that we are not, something that's not, in line with, of course, not the Constitution. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have a comment here from the Blind Guy Show. It says Microsoft and other tech companies are working on the Mocktail identification card, VIC, in the US. Well, and to speak to that, I did, you guys can go to the archives for any, and that means what's here on their tube. Shout out to Derek C. Williams for their tube. You can go into the archives from this platform, and you can find I had a story in which Derek C. Williams shared with me, and it kind of gave, it let you see exactly what was happening in Africa, as well as you had what Gavi and MasterCard, the trust stamp. The trust stamp was rolled out last year, just a few months ago, I believe, not less than 6 months ago. I think they rolled out the trust stamp in I think West Africa. Gates did. So they're all working. It's all in a tandem effort to, they're all joining, locking arms to make this come to pass. So I'm not sure where they are, but I think that's the direction that they're going in. So who knows? I think the financial institutions are going to get, that's not a surprise to me. I said all that to say I'm not surprised to see the the financial institutions, showing their rearing their heads, showing their positions in this. So it's just going to be a joint effort to put us in line. And hello to Zero the Infinite. Hello, thank you so much for coming in, and I really appreciate you guys. And I really don't mean to be a broken record, but if you haven't had an opportunity once again to feed the AI on this stream, please do that. And you can do that at any time. Even I'm saying, even when the stream ends, it's never too late to feed the AI around here. It's absolutely never too late to do that. Whether it's in even in the comment section, you can still do that. I'm not so much concerned with the tracking of, not so much concerned with the tracking, but to get things out, to disseminate the stream, it's better that you just do it whenever you can. And know that there's no expiration date. And I want to read a couple comments here. Thank you guys so much for being one of the best chats on the internet. Let the Truth Be Told says they have had the identification chip since the 60s. I had received information of this 20 years ago. The guy asked for the information back, which he received back. And the Blind Guy Show says, I'm sure social credit scores are next. Yeah, but I don't want to. I'll get into credit. We won't do credit scores on this stream. We won't do the current credit scores without even the social element to it. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to take you to our final liner of today. And that is actually going to come from, and this is where you might want to brace yourselves. You already know the threat. So I'll tell you what, the next liner is actually going to be, it's actually going to come from, there's a woman who has suffered convulsions after taking Moderna's mocktail, and we have some footage on that. So brace yourselves. If you're not standing, if you're not sitting, sit down. If you don't know where the community tab is, please go there. So I'm going to take you there, and that will round out our stream for today. So thank you guys so much once again for tuning in. I'm going to grab this comment before I take you there. And but Callie Garcia says liberal women in the USA are being used. Fidel used many, quote, white middle class women, end quote, who practice Santeria, and felt guilty, got them on his side to move the revolution. Yeah, the tactics, they're not new, they're not new. But I think people just lack perspective. I mean, and I think some of the most vulnerable people are the ones that lack perspective, and that's really it's hard to see. It's hard to deal with that. Um, you just you still have to read. It's still fundamental. And another comment says, Zero to Infinite says, from what I read about the mocktails, even the scientists are not even sure about the effectiveness of it, but everyone should take it. Make that make sense. I love it. I love that. My cousin said that. My cousin says that sometimes to her mom, and I'm like, all right, there you go. It's a little pushback from her. It's acceptable. They come up with their own ways to push back. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't have the guts or the courage to push back, but what can I say, the younger generation, so to speak, they have their own ways of pushing back. They're just being indoctrinated, I think, and I try not to refer to her as a millennial or whatever. I try not to brand her or any of that, but you've got to use your own autonomy. And what I'm going to do is take you to that liner. Thank you guys so much for choosing Black Spring on your Friday. And all right, let me give you this. And this is coming from thegreatgameindia.com. All right, according to this, a woman suffers whole body convulsions after taking the experimental mocktail of Moderna. A woman from Oakland City, Indiana, in the United States, warned others to not get the experimental Moderna mocktail after she suffered tongue spasms and whole body convulsions. She posted her videos on Facebook where her entire body is seen shaking uncontrollably. The CDC said such side effects are, quote, mild, end quote, and, quote, normal, end quote. All right, so I'm going to share this with you. Actually, I'm going to put this in the stream in case we go down. I feel like I'm on the... This is the Titanic I'm on. My channel is turned into the Titanic. All right, so there you go. Okay, bringing you this line. All right, so according to this, and I will, we'll play it. Sean Skelton, the resident of Oakland City who works for Good Samaritan Home, a nursing home in Evansville, claimed she suffered uncontrollable shaking and tongue spasms after taking the experimental Moderna's mocktail. She and her fiance believe the convulsions could only be a reaction to the stick. In a Facebook post on January 8th, 2021, she warned others against considering to get the stick. According to this, if you are considering the mocktail, namely the Moderna. I would advise against it. I am in bad shape, every day getting worse, and I'm not getting help or answers. I'm scared to death, to say the least. And to find someone willing to attempt to figure this out hasn't been very successful. I went to two hospitals today, walked out of Deaconess and went to St. Vincent. No answers there either. They say, let's see a neurologist. Who knows when they can see me? Yesterday, my tongue began to spasm and it hasn't quit. Today, my whole body has been convulsing all day. They sent me home. I'm posting two videos that are quite embarrassing if you know me, but I want you to see what's happening to me. So she's asking very humbly, very earnestly, and it says, just please pray for me. So I'm going to attempt to play this for you right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. What did you say? The definition, it says clever coding. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm getting shoring up my game, right? Get my game up around here. All right, so it's going to share this with you guys. Let's see. This is she's showing. This is going to be convulsions and some form of. It's very. This is very disturbing, but I'm going to show it. I put the link in, so let's see. Bring the EKG machine to room 11. EKG machine to room 11. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the next one. So you guys will have to play this if you're just coming in. You'll have to take the liner for yourselves. But I'm going to show this one is the tongue convulsions here. And this one's quite lengthy. So I'm going to keep going with this one. So this was inserted into that actual article, but you guys can take the liner from the stream, to get to watch. I don't need to show you an entire minute and 10 seconds of that. It's very disturbing. But then I thought, well, this is all provocative, right? And quote, 3 days later after the Moderna shtick, this was the uncontrollable shakes. Skelton's fiance, Rich Vidalia, said from her hospital bedside Monday, quote, if she gets worked up thinking about it, she gets crying, it takes over her body for like a good maybe minute or two, and she'll start shaking even worse. Nobody wants to point it out. Nobody wants to point it toward the mocktail, end quote, Vidalia said. Speaking on the matter, Dr. Craig Everett Hassman, a local doctor, said, quote, to cause uncontrollable shaking, you'd have to have something that's throughout your whole body. You'd have to have something that affects your brain or your nervous system. It would have to cause some kind of neurological abnormality in the spinal cord or the brain itself, end quote. Meanwhile, the CDC, weighing in on Skelton's claim, said side effects, quote, tend to be mild or to moderate and go away quickly, end quote. So as I said earlier, you guys can take that line for yourself. That, what she's experiencing on an oral, with the oral situation there, it goes on for an entire minute and 10 seconds. So that's a long time to have to lose control of that. And well, it's a long time to a minute can feel like a lifetime if you're not in control. But and I imagine that it affects her eating and just, I mean, who knows. But so yeah, please take the line if you like. It's there for you. And the definition of anarchy says stick. Yeah, I must say shtick. I want to shtick. And the definition says hokey pokey. And it is very sad. It's very disturbing, and it's pretty devastating for the medical community, I would think, overall. I mean, what are we talking about here? But Callie Garcia says, I've taken so many, like the whooping cough, mocktail when I was pregnant, and my son being forced to take some vitamin K shot and ointment. Why? The blind guy show says nobody knows the long-term health ramifications of the mRNA mocktail. See, there you go. I got one person on the. I've got one person in the chat using the lingo around here. As a matter of fact, I think not only will I create an actual emergency if Black Spring becomes incapacitated on the platform, I'll even just go ahead and give you guys some of the codes, give you some of the jargon around here, the Black Spring jargon. And he says, I'm guessing we'll see casualties in about 6 months to 1 year. Yikes. I would hate to, I would hate to think, but who knows. But she did ask for people to pray for her, and I think that's the best that we can do, because of course she's dropped her name, and that's being covered out of India. I'm not sure if what she's it's being covered. That was written out of it's somebody here in the States that experienced that, but who in the States is covering that? It's just it's not being covered here. So here, according to Zero the Infinite, to change his DNA, Bet Kelly. Good morning, Kathy Latour. Thank you so much for coming in. And Zero the Infinite. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in. So that's pretty much the bulk of what I had. The only other thing I could do is I did see some things that were a little bit, can I say, brow raising over on the We forum. I did see something over there, but I mean, and they give you the blueprint. Okay, you got the blueprint. Now, if you're still trying to figure things out, or just go to the weforum.org. I mean, it's there. But it's a part of the sustainability, the sustainability goals. It's all there for you. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm going to give another word of thanks to our sponsors, and I'll be right back. Thanks so much, guys. And if you haven't had an opportunity to feed our AI today, please do that. And Zero the Infinite says you got to take the mocktail in 2 doses weeks apart if you take it. See, that's I have no idea. I can't verify anything. I can't. I have no idea what that looks like right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give another word of thanks to our patrons around here, and I'll be right back with you guys right after this. right, guys. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. And let's see, I might have one more to pull out of the hat. Let's see, I'm going to share this comment we have from Zero to Infinite. Says that's what the mainstream has written about the mocktail, as far as I know. Yeah. Well, at least you've got some other perspectives. And you've got, a video, but that's the thing. It's like, believe what you're told. If even if there's a burning building, if it's burning down, behind you, just be quiet. Everything's fine. You just believe what we tell you. Just say anything. So what I want to do, I may have misstepped on this. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to round out this stream. I really appreciate you guys for taking the time to come in. I have a comment from Steve Willis. Thank you, Steve Willis, for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Steve Willis says, people around me are proudly claiming they have taken the mocktail. And yes, 28 days apart. Wow, Steve Willis. Thank you for sharing that. It's almost getting to be, yeah, but that kind of speaks to something else that I want to talk about. There seems to be, I think, under the guise of safety and health, people they're not even regarding this. I think individuals are not even considering this to be a personal matter, or they're not even thinking of it in terms of, the dignity of a choice. This is your choice. And I've even heard of people that are in the medical community that they're being asked regularly, oh, did you take did you, and then the person that's declining to give them the information, because it's not their business. It's really not their business. But it's like people have absolutely just like, oh, well, I have to know well, I know my status. You better get this thing. It's just, there's all of this. It's really intense. It's really sad. I don't know if I've never heard of anything like this, but it just seems that the demoralization and the amount of propaganda has really just kind of taken over people's, you that's really not your business to be disclosing what mocktails you've had or not. No, even in 2021. I mean, did you ever disclose with anyone before about which mocktails are on your childhood immunization card? Because even in the universities, well, see, here again, I'm kind of wrapping myself into something that's very apropos, that even the universities, they want that immunization card. And it makes, that's what we were accustomed to. We've been accustomed to mocktails on some level, but this is a new era of inoculation, and everybody's making it their business to know whether or not you are, and you're getting it from your peers or from your colleagues too. So are we going to start dealing with mocktail shaming? Is that what we're going to start dealing with? And I'm already hearing about it. What's to keep people from bullying people or public shamings, or discriminating against people? I mean, yeah, this is opening up a box that, that I'm going to use the term right now, that the sheep they have no dignity and no integrity about it. They're all down with it. But for the person who actually, values their privacy, or they don't want that invasion, they have an issue with this. They have an issue either whether telling you or not they're going to get it, and people are openly asking, oh, were you going to do this and this, and are you doing this, or did you do this? You better get this, we're running out. Touche, Steve Willis. He says, so much for HIPAA. That's what I'm just thinking, if we're going to do this, then there is no HIPAA. It's, I don't know. I don't know how much longer this can last. This is not sustainable. We're not going to function. We're not going to function with this. Not peaceably. We're not. I think people are going to end up getting attacked, or, what, for their choice. And, it's almost like a religion. You go from one thing to another. You go from the CV itself. You go from the mask, the CV, and now to the mocktail. Well, what else is next? What else are they going to, mandate or regulate? I mean, it's just like you're not in control. You're not in control of your person. Whatever happened to the my body, my choice? Whatever. Does anybody know what happened to that? But that's applied only if you want to destroy somebody, right? It's just, it's thick, right? It's pretty thick. And Zero to Infinite says mocktail shaming. That's very possible. People are already shaming people for not wearing the mask. We and Bet Callie says, I want God to help me be more prudent. And Bet Callie says, learn to protect my privacy and my family's. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. It's almost like we're going to be ruled by, we're going to be ruled, we're going to be tyrannized. Okay. There's going to be tyranny on so many levels. It's a paradigm of tyranny that might come from your neighbors, might come from your coworkers, might come from your banker, your institutions, your schools. I mean, even the kids. I mean, that's a whole nother show. I mean, how are the kids handling, or are they going to require the kids to have, because if I'm not mistaken now, I don't want to be too hearsay, but if I'm not mistaken, I did read, and you guys can fact check me on this, I don't mind. But wasn't it, they always they drip little nuggets out there for you. What was it? Andrew Yang that talked about, oh, isn't there an app? Oh, it's so brilliant he came up with. Isn't there an app out there that you can tell whether people, come on, really? Really? Is he prophetic? No. But these people, they drip these things out. They always show us what's possible. They always show you what's next. They always preview it. And they previewed, I'm going to be honest, I talked about the primaries and each one of the candidates on the left. If we're going to go into the shout out to the definition of anarchy, if we're going to go with the left-right paradigm, the left previewed quite a bit. They each previewed a section of these goals. Whether it's Yang was one of the ones who, it's almost like he kind of made the universal basic income his baby on the stage. And then you had, the Green New Deal, of course, and the big guy has always been talking about climate change. Now, see, that's going to be the next. That's going to be the next crisis. And I'm not sure what that's going to do. I'm even seeing signs or hearing things about that's going to be your next crisis that you're going to, if all else fails, you'll need to save the planet by, you're going to have to give up some more freedoms to, and you've got people that are already buying that too. They're already buying it. So thank you guys so much. And but Callie Garcia says one half of the USA will be homeschooled. Zero the Infinite says it's just like the show Counterpart where Parallel Earth has a virus. Whoops, I said it. Take out most of the population where people wore a mask against the V and someone sneezed and that person was. It's honestly, that's one thing you don't want to do in public. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything human. Don't sneeze, don't cough, don't scratch, don't do anything. And the definition says, wasn't sure if you caught this link about how the hokey pokey makes. Ooh, thank you very much for sharing that. I'm going to hang on to that. Thank you, definition of anarchy. I really appreciate it. And Zero the Infinite says, fear is a good motivator for giving up freedoms. So yeah, I mean, I think we've already conceded too much, and people are ready. They're ready to, They're ready to concede it. They're really ready to hand it all over. They really are. And yeah, but I will tell you the irony. I will give you the irony, and then I will wrap this thing up. I find it interesting that the European. I'm thinking this is some kind of psyop. Put my hat on my tin hat. I don't have a tin hat, so I'll just put on my cap here or something. I'll just put the cap on. But I find it interesting that some of the foreign nations, some of the European nations are coming to an outrage over the censorship of DT. I'm just thinking, you guys have been anti DT for 4 years, and all of a sudden you wanna offer some type of sentiment or outrage and say, oh, that's dangerous for you to do. It's staggering. But I just think it's probably just more propaganda, you know. Who knows why they're coming to some type of empathy for DT at the end. Yeah, at the end, everything just, all the adults show up at the end of the movie, right? Paul Graves, hello. He says, I'm enjoying your live streams and find it to be very similar to another female. Yeah. The Lockhart perspective, if you're out there. Yes, I am very familiar with the Lockhart perspective. I am. Yes, she is fantastic, and she's very original. So I encourage everyone to get over to the Lockhart perspective as soon as you can. If you're not already, get over there. And yes, so yeah, I'm trying to think, where was I going? But yes, I'm just thinking on a global scale, the news. I mean, 2019, all you could hear about was, the world versus DT, and all of a sudden, he's met with censorship on these platforms, and oh, that's not good. Was it Angela Merkel? I think has even jumped in. Oh my gosh, I just just watch this thing play out. I mean, I don't have any popcorn or anything, but but I do have some root juice in these times. And when I say root juice, ladies and gentlemen, I am referring to carrot and beet, its combination, and ginger and some other earth granola juice. But I don't know. I just think we're just gonna have to watch everything play out, and you just have to keep the faith and keep your discernment, and also keep an eye on the community tab. I guess I'm going to craft an emergency plan, or some where to goes, and yeah, and that's where you can go even in the middle of the stream, so you'll know what you can do, where you can go. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Just want to say thanks to everybody in the stream, and you guys have been the best as always. And Bet Callie Garcia, thank you so much. And Keys Club Mafioso, thank you so much for coming in. And Derek C. Williams is out there. In thank you, Derek C. Williams, for sharing out the stream. If you guys aren't familiar with Derek C. Williams, please get over to his channel as well. We have a lot of prolific content creators that are, their supporters or patrons around here, their subscribers. Get over to his channel. Get over to the Definition of Anarchy. He might still be around here. I look forward to his stream all the time. He's always keeping us on our toes and keeping us away from the Kool-Aid. Too much Kool-Aid, red or blue, right? Not good. And Let the Truth Be Told, also another supporter and content creator around here. Thank you so much for coming in. And Steve Willis, thank you so much for supporting the channel and being in the chat. And Paul Graves, thank you for stimulating the chat with your perspectives this morning or this afternoon. Let me get it right. Oh, I'm still morning coast to coast, so So you guys are still in the morning. I changed the lighting today, and it's still like I tried to get in before the sun came up, um, and I did. But I think this is better lighting, a little bit better lighting, I guess, slightly for this area. And the Blind Guy Show, thank you so much for coming in. And the definition, I'm going to make sure that I pull that. Let's see, make sure that I pull that information that you put in. Thank you for sharing that. Kathy Latour, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And also, if you guys haven't had an opportunity to feed the AI today, no time like the present, right? Or even in the comment section for those that are watching this in replay, you guys can always still feed the AI. And the definition, what are you saying out there? He says, don't take the red pill or the blue pill, get the clear pill. I'm going to post that. Zero to Infinite, thank you so much for coming out and supporting. Let's see, I need to save this. I will get it saved. The definition of anarchy, thank you so much. And here I'm going to post that one. Yeah, he says don't take the red pill or the blue pill, get the clear pill up in you. He says, yeah, the clear. Yeah, we need some clarity, for without a doubt. Like, yeah. And Steve Willis says, amen, Black Spring, keep the discernment. Yeah, it's tough, Let us know the definition of anarchy. If you're serving, are you serving the clear pill today? Let us know. You can drop your link or whatever you want right now, or just tell us if you think you might be. If you're serving the clear pill today, we'll come over if we can. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And actually, I'll drop your link myself. And also, you guys just drop your links and just go ahead and do it. I mean, I double fist a lot of things myself around here, but I think the definition has the drop on the clear pill. So go for it, TDOA, go for it. So yeah. And he's also got a great book out there, and I'm going to get the book. I'm just behind. And TDOA says I'm probably going to administer the clear pill on Sunday. So there you go. You can get your own clear pill on Sunday. Yeah, you can do that, or we can do you one better than that. How about this? And then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to give one more thanks, and then we're going to get out of here on your Friday. And shout out to Derek C. Williams. If you're out there, if you're within the sound of my voice, or working through on the front lines. Okay, so now, so Bet Callie Garcia. Let's see. Okay, so here's also, if you don't get over for the clear pill, I guess over on TDOA, you can certainly get over to the Seeds Dark Matter Disease. And I'm going to put that out there for you. So that's a book. The book courtesy of TDOA. That's the definition of anarchy. And yes, you're welcome. No problem. All right, guys. Once again, I thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And as I say all the time, I know I've been delayed, but please keep an eye on the community tab, at least through the weekend. I might even just make sure I get it done at the end of this stream. And this stream will also be available on the other platforms. If you're into podcasting or whatnot, if you don't have time to deal with visuals or whatnot, you can get this on podcast via Google Podcast, Spotify. And actually, I'm going to run this last commercial, and you can see it's at the very end. where you can find the podcast. So there's at least 6 platforms, including Anchor. So yes. And TD Oasis Digital. Yes, and that's why I was conflicted with which one I was actually going to do, because I'm kind of piling on with the books these days, but I do have some on iBooks. No problem. I really appreciate all you do and your support around here. So one more time for the patrons, and we are out of here. We're going to say so long. We're going to button up and say so long. So I'll be right back. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for us. And we're going to button up and say so long on your Friday. And thanks so much for everybody who supported, and for those of you that have taken the opportunity to feed the AI today. And so long until next time.